Hello and welcome to Finding Your Niche. I'm your host, Jake Kranz, and today I had the pleasure of sitting down with Allison Phillips, the president and CEO of the National Podcast Association. Her career started in Hollywood following her graduation from college. She slowly found her way back to Milwaukee, where she launched Edge Sports and began building her media company. Her team has most recently launched the Wisconsin Podcast Association and is in the process of launching the National Podcast Association. Allison is a fearless leader with an expertise in marketing and media, and she was a pleasure to have on the show today. I hope you enjoy. All right, everybody. Well, welcome to Finding Your Niche. Today we have on Allison Phillips, the president of the National Podcast Association, among other things, several other things, let me tell you. We're going to get into this today a bit. But the purpose of this show is to share the stories of marketers and how they found their personal niche and what they're passionate about, and then how they got to run whatever their niche is full time. And then it's also about the businesses that they run and the niches that they are in there. So how do they market to their potential clients, and then how they activate their clients as well. So Allison, I think a great place for us to start would be to hear your personal story. So if you could go back to Genesis, or if you were a superhero, your origin story, I'd love to learn a little bit more about where you come from and how you got to where you are today.
Awesome. Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to do your
Absolutely.
show.
Absolutely.
So basically a little bit about me is I actually am a theater major. So I never wanted to do business. I did theater. I moved out to LA. I did some TV shows and all that kind of stuff. Then started working at the Emmy Awards. And when I was there, I decided I didn't want to go on auditions anymore because I loved business, but it was cool because I'd have the cast of Friends would come in, and it was like a really cool job.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow I ended up back in Wisconsin and just started having businesses. So I ran a promotional product company, and I kind of always had businesses and would flip them. Then I had a clothing store, worked at a soccer team for a while, and just never I guess maybe because my imagination or I have ADD, I never was fulfilled in anything I was doing.
Interesting.
So I went back to my marketing company, because it kind of never died, my promotional company / marketing. I always kind of had that on the side no matter what else I ran, just because, you have the clients that call and, you kind of just kept them as a side job. And I was doing it. And then all of a sudden, a good friend of mine, over 3 years ago already, he was a morning show host on West Riggs and Alley in Milwaukee on Kiss FM, and he got let go. Well, he calls me up and he's like, "Oh my God, I got fired." And I was laughing because he was there for 16 years, right? And he's like, "It's not funny." So we met at a bar. We start drinking because why would we not? We're in Wisconsin.
Well, and you're Wisconsin, right? I was going to say.
Right, that's all we do here. So
Yep.
We met up at 3 p.m, and I kid you not. And because, I knew he was friend, and he was already drinking all day. So he was in great shape.
Welcome to Wisconsin, everybody. And by the way, if anybody's not from the Midwest, everything you hear about Wisconsin, Allison, sorry about the stereotype here. It's all true. I'm from Minnesota, so I'm very biased. I'm from Minnesota. I'm very biased, but I think everything that you hear about Wisconsin is very true. The cheese is phenomenal.
All true.
The beer is great, and people enjoy drinking that beer and eating that cheese.
That's absolutely. See, you're dead on, and you don't have to be sorry about it. It's true. I was drinking at 3. It was probably a Monday, maybe even 2. So, and I'm not ashamed to say it. In any other state, you'd be like, I was drinking it too.
Yeah.
So we were talking.
It's okay because the rest of the town was there too. But
well,
anyways,
that's exactly it. I mean, I wouldn't be in the in crowd if I wasn't there. So we're sitting and talking, and he had to sign a non-compete. And how do you do that to somebody so he couldn't work for a year in radio? How do you do that to someone whose their career of 20 years has been just radio? He doesn't know anything else. Mm-hmm. So I was like, "Oh, come be a salesperson for me." Well, first weekend, I'm like, he can't sell. He told someone to F off, and he was just not having. He's like, "I don't care what color your pen is," or, and I'm like, "Wes." So we were at some other radio event, and someone's like, "Start a podcast." At that time, I had no idea what podcasts even were. Didn't listen to one. Really had no interest in it. And I was like, okay, because I wanted him to do something, right? So we called it the Radio Reject. We got another friend of ours who was fired from radio as well, who was on for 20 years. and they started doing a show, and we made one of our offices just a studio. And it just, I mean, now granted, we had 2 local well-known radio people on it, but it just blew up. But it was fun, and then when she couldn't be on, I'd go on with them, and it was just creative. So we got another show, then we've got another show. And all of a sudden we launched something called Edge Podcast Network. And I loved going to work every day, finally, after all these years of having all these businesses, because you don't know what you're getting. One day it's true crime of, the woman who cracked the case of Jeffrey Dahmer, to the next day, just 2 guys talking about food and nonsense, like, different avenues all the time, that my ADD was like perfect. I was so happy because it always changes. So we kind of,
do you think it was the novelty that caused you to really enjoy showing up to work every day, or what do you think it was that made you realize, like, wow, this is what I wanted to do?
Yeah, probably. I mean, probably a lot. But I think for someone like me who, and I'll be honest with you, I come up with these ideas all the time, right? And I haven't worked for anybody. I've been a business owner. I've held probably, when I was 16, I had jobs that had bosses, and then maybe one other time in life. So I just am always driven by, always coming up with new ideas. And I think that stems from, I get bored easy, and I kind of think it's my creative mind of when I was an actor. This, you don't know, it's not this, I'm not good with the same routine, with the same pattern, with getting up, going into work, making phone calls all day, let's say quoting something, getting in your car, going home. This, I walk in and it is a shit. Can I swear in your podcast?
Oh yeah, fuck
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I swear a lot. So it's a shit show every day, and I love it. It's utter chaos every day, and I love it. We
Great.
have we went from having, we're squattering in the back of this old Sears automotive building that they were playing baseball in front, and they let us, go there. There was no rent. I mean, there was no rent. There was rent, barely, but there was no heat. There was no air conditioning. It was the grossest thing ever, but we went every day, and we wouldn't decorate it because it was so gross, and we were ashamed when people would come in, because we're like, we couldn't have signage. We're squatting in the back of this place to build more studios. To now, actually, I kind of stopped everything else, all the promotional products, everything. And now we literally just do video and audio and podcasting and audio. We have a lot of companies that we do, as well as our podcast network. But I think I love the utter chaos of it every day, and that you don't know who's coming in. Like, we'll have people come in all day through our studios, and it can be from somebody from, Bernie Sanders one day to somebody down, a mom and pop owner down the street. Like, I never know who's coming in, because I have so many different hosts, and they all book their own talent. And, we rent our studios out too. It's so much fun. And I'm so interested in stories. So I get to listen to stories all day. How awesome is that?
Yeah. And here we are listening to your story, even better.
Sorry, everybody.
So I'm curious about the business model behind that. Are all of the podcasts owned in a way by Edge Podcast Network, or are the hosts the owners of the shows? And then
no,
how does that work?
What we have is, so we have 2 kind of areas that we do. So we started out just getting hosts and having our own Edge Podcast Network. Then we kind of saw that a lot of businesses, I personally feel every business should have a podcast. I feel if you could do, and I'm not against radio, I have tons of friends in radio, but you can do a morning radio spot, a 60-second spot in a morning drive for $350, or you can capture and people will listen or not, or turn the channel, and it's gone. Podcasting stays forever. You do a podcast, let's say you do an episode for the same price. It never goes away. Plus, you can sell commercials in it. You can make your money back. So I think everyone should have one. So kind of what started happening, and you and I were talking about this before we started recording, but, you get a guest to come in, and all of a sudden let's say we'd have a guest coming in who sold granola, let's say. I would sit there and they'd leave, and I'd be like, why don't they have a podcast? What a great story. So we kind of have 2 avenues. So we started with Edge Podcast Network. We have a lot of local, Milwaukee celebrities. We have a woman named DJ Shauna, who's the DJ for the Milwaukee Bucks and all of Wisconsin Badgers. We have this Nick Chipman, who is a food blogger for Dude Foods. He has over like 1 million followers, and he got known.
And I know Keith Tozer. I think he's a World of Futsal, right?
Oh yeah, Keith Tozer does a World of Futsal. We have Ian Bennett from the Milwaukee Wave. We got just a lot of different local celebrities that, kind of jumped on board. So that kind of was fun, you know what I mean? And we could sell it. We were able to sell sponsorships because people knew them. So it kind of started keeping the business alive, and we were growing. And then our second form of revenue is getting businesses that do branded podcasting. So between the two of them, we were able then we have a fully functioning 2 studios, and then 3 offices, and, like a little lobby area. So.
Interesting. So are all the podcasts recorded in studio, like in your studios?
They were. And now with, everything that has gone on with the coronavirus, a lot have done Zoom. We have some people that just don't want it. They only want to come in the studio, so they haven't been recording. But it's interesting. It's going to be interesting because, I've been recording from now my house, every day. And it sounds, let's be honest, it sounds just as good. It doesn't have that social interaction. You don't feel cool, like going in a studio and talking and, have a TV next to you and all that stuff. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens now. Like we just this morning had a podcast, and it was a new client, and they have all professional sport athletes on. So I doubt that they're ever really going to come in. It was so easy. We called them in. We did it. We did one yesterday. We did one today. We're launching it tomorrow already. And I think it's going to change how things are. I don't even, one employee was like, do we even need this space? I don't know. It'll be
right. I mean, it's a very valid question to ask. Cause I feel like with a lot of people, everybody has their own schedule, and they're trying to make things happen. But especially with the example you gave about professional athletes, it's got to be a logistical nightmare to try to get people into a studio to try to record.
Well, and you think about 3 years ago when we started podcasting, it didn't sell as well as it does now. Like 3 years ago, we'd go into a room, to a client and say, okay, you should sponsor this. And they were just all like, I don't know. How do you get a podcast? Like, how can you find it? What is that? And now you can walk in and be like, podcast. And they're like, oh, yep. What can we do? Yeah. Oh God, I listened to this one and this one. So it's, a friend of mine the other day said, are you nervous about how you're going to keep your business going? Because everyone can just do podcasting on their own now. And I said, no, for a lot of reasons. One, the companies and a lot of people don't want to take the time, or I don't know how to edit, to be honest with you. I hire someone to do it. I could have figured it out possibly, but there's other people like me that don't want to take the time to have to learn to do that and
or don't have the time.
Right. And then that's when, after that whole thing happened is when then we decided, we tried to get into, I'm kind of doing a segue here. Which probably
no worries. Feel free.
But, you can edit. That's the other great thing with podcasting. But, Wes and I were sitting one day, and the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association, they had awards coming up, and they're like, oh, well, we don't recognize podcasts unless you have an FCC license. So we were sitting there, and he's like, that's crap. And they're like, write us a letter why we should. So we did. And then we kind of came up with Wisconsin Podcasters Association or Podcast Association. So that with putting the two together, it's kind of exciting because, I keep them separate as much as I can. I don't want anyone to always think like, oh, well, she runs Wisconsin Podcast Association, so all of Ed's shows are on there. I have a board, so I don't, even if I wanted them all to be on the board, will shoot me down. But that kind of became the second part of what I'm doing that I love just as much, if not a little more. And the reason is because we had these events, and again, this is going to change too, but we did monthly events, and to see all of these podcasters come out that don't know how to monetize a podcast, that don't have the resources that I have, that are doing it in their basement, but just have passion for it. To see all of these people come out,
awesome.
Just join. We're up to about 3,000 members right now.
Wow.
And we are launching National Podcast Association. And with that, we have 48 out of the 50 states so far. So we're going to do one state at a time.
So you have 3,000 members. Are all those people in Wisconsin right now?
No. We have some. That's kind of what made us kind of, we have a lot in Illinois and a lot of in Minnesota. That
well, you're in Milwaukee, right? So it's kind of like a middle ground.
Right. So we had all these people being like, oh, we wish we had that here. And, cause we do online classes and it's all free to members who join. So it's just, and I think it's just a place for people to come together and, close group and talk about, hey, what platform do you use? Or they can all have conversations with themselves and not feel so alone, or how do you get your numbers up? And people can communicate more than just hearing one view,
Right.
So we kind of got people being like, oh, I wish, we had that in Illinois. I wish we had that in Minnesota. And so we went and got them and, teaming up with different podcast groups and networks out in every state. And then we're slowly going to outroll all of that as well and hopefully just build a great big community of podcasters.
That is awesome.
That's the goal, my friend. I don't know if it will happen, but that's the goal.
Well, it sounds like a very big goal. And if anybody can do it, I think you're probably the one that can do it. I mean, you mentioned that you enjoy a shit show on a day-to-day basis, and getting into that will probably create quite the shit show.
It's going to be. Well, somebody said to me the other day, we were talking about a fear. We're talking about the topic of fear. And I don't know if I have that, which is good or bad. Like, I don't get scared on things that, like one time somebody broke in my house, true story, and they whipped out a gun and I was like, what are you doing? Like, I didn't scream. And my roommate was upstairs like, hiding in a closet. And I go, you have to go. Like, you have to go. And I was like in my 20s and I shoot him out and he left. And they're like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, so I don't know if I have that component as much as I probably should. But I think that's what helps me take chances not to, I don't think. I do it, say we're going to do it. And then it's not that I don't think. I say I'm going to do it and then figure out how to do it after. I don't sit and think, God, should I do it? Oh, should I not? I'm like, oh, we're going to do a podcast festival. Let's just do it. And then after,
and you develop your strategy in the action instead of thinking through the strategy and then trying to implement whatever your strategy is, because maybe you've realized that a lot of times things go wrong in just about every project, regardless of your strategy. So,
if you don't if you don't do it, like I was talking to someone the other day who actually works with me, and she's scared of failure. And I'm like, you can't be scared of failure. You'll learn from everything you do. So what I do, like I do different projects, are all of them successful? No, but I'll learn from everyone. Everyone's a success. Every project I do is a success at some level because you learn from it, is kind of how I look at it. So I don't know, either it'll work or it won't, but I'm going to die trying. So that's
well, it'll be fun either way. And it sounds like a great opportunity for you. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity for all of the podcasters out there in the United States and potentially across the globe, depending on how big you create this community.
Well, that's what's cool with it. It's $10. The lowest package is $10 a year. And the only reason we charge that is because, we hand out a welcome pack and a certificate and whatnot. So it covers the cost and the shipping. Otherwise, it's not to make millions of dollars. It's to just build a community together. Right.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. I'm curious about where the majority of your clients come from now. I'm sure things have been shifted because of the COVID right now. But I don't know if you're open to sharing where you get the majority of your clients from right now, but I'd love to hear more about your marketing strategy and what you do to activate your niche.
You mean for the podcast network?
For the podcast network. And I guess you could talk about the podcast association as well.
Well, it's funny because that one's harder. And I'll be honest, of getting people, of finding people, because what I noticed is that a lot of podcasters who are doing it as a hobby aren't promoting it on, let's say, LinkedIn, aren't promoting it, in certain areas. They might only be promoting it on Instagram or not promoting it at all because they don't know how to run, how to do that. So we put a big thing out about a year ago and we got, about 200, let's say, members. Then we opened it up for free for a while, but then we were losing money. So we thought not to do that. We got another 200. We did a podcast festival, and then that kind of worked because then, with marketing it and advertising it. We teamed up with iHeart. We had a lot of people coming out of the closet to, come, and a lot of people who wanted to podcast or had questions. And we found a lot of people that way. But the majority of how we got them is we started doing these tours.
Mm-hmm.
So we realized that Milwaukee's saturated. We did a mixer event, and the night before, a competitor of mine decided to do it a night before, and we're friends. So I'd call him. I'd be like, "What are you doing?" And he's like,
wow.
like kind of laughing, like, "Dude, you're killing me," he would do something different. And so we're competing for the same audience. Now we do a lot more together, which is good. But again, we're friends, and that's what sucks with him. And if he's listening, he knows. But Milwaukee was so saturated. And what I realized, we went up to Madison, which, is a suburb of the city of Wisconsin. Obviously, the capital is there. No, they had nothing. We got hundreds of people out for this event, and we were expecting 20. We'd get 20 in Milwaukee. So then we're like, all right, and people signed up, but it was everybody was sharing stories, and, we did giveaways, and then they'd talk about their podcast, and everybody just, I don't want to say bought into what I was selling, but they bought in, but I believe in it, and I don't feel it's, it's not like a Ponzi scheme.
They bought into the community.
Yeah, really. They bought in the community, right. And it was just this overpowering thing. So then we were like, let's try Green Bay. Same thing. Let's try, and these are all, different cities of Wisconsin. Let's try Appleton. So, right now I actually got off the phone this morning with a guy who runs a big network up there. So we're not competing against people. We want to join everybody. And we got 30 new members from them just in the last 2 weeks because they want to be on this. We're doing this podcast-a-thon. They want to be on that. So it's really cool because it's kind of like they had this outlet of people hearing them and they didn't know where to go. So we didn't really find it in Milwaukee, which I thought is where we'd get the majority of them, And I think word of mouth, and the more we do, and I think the more people are seeing what they're getting out of their membership, the more they're joining it. But we have to market different to what we do to LinkedIn, to how we market on Instagram, to how we market it on Facebook,
Interesting. So it sounds like a really grassroots model right there. I mean, you go into these cities and try to get as many people on board in the community as possible.
Yeah, we have again, it's so hard because so much is changing with the virus. But we were getting a food truck that we were changing into a traveling podcast.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
And that's what the goal is this summer. So we'll see what happens, but to go around the whole United States, and get a team and have podcasters come out, and they can come in and podcast there and kind of find different places to go, but then do these events. And I just feel like, how cool to be like, to me, it would be to be able to go into the, it's like the old Oscar Mayer Wiener mobile.
Yeah.
I'm in podcasting, by the way. And, just to travel around in it, and how fun would it be for a summer? I'm like, I'll go, and other employees sign me.
I am on board too. I think I saw there's probably a few of them, but there was a book donation company. It was like a nonprofit for children's books. And it's similar to like an ice cream truck, but they would just go around and they'd give children books at various events. And there's another one, I think the name of the company here is Wilderness Inquiry. It's another nonprofit, and they have a canoe-mobile. So they drive around the city, and then it's called Wilderness Inquiry. So they want to teach kids about all the different things that they can learn from nature. And so they drive around with like canoes and stuff, and it's really cool. So
cool.
I am all in on your traveling podcast idea.
Wouldn't that be fun just to take it for a week and like everyone just kind of, change off, and then it just, I don't know. So we're working with a company that had all these food trucks for Johnson brats in their back that they don't use, and they're decked out. They're beautiful. So we're seeing how to change that into the podcast mobile. Is what I'm calling it right now.
Well, just a big logo. That's all you need.
Exactly. And I want to cut it out so that, it's like we can stop somewhere and people can interact with, people kind of, but you can sleep in there. It's really cool, actually. So we'll see. We'll see how it ends up being. I'll probably end up living in there because I'll go to business, but I'm kidding. But it is exciting though, and it's just like the more people get, into things and wanting to be part of it and hearing everyone's story, it's just more food of thought for me and just motivates me even more. So it's like, it's so cool that, at this age that I found something that I love, and I'm not even looking to flip this company, like, which I've done for years. It's like, I love coming to work every day.
Yeah.
That's my story.
That sounds awesome. And I don't know if we touched on the Edge network a whole lot, but I'd love to dig deeper into that a little bit and talk more about like your current clients there and what you have been doing to develop relationships with people to build that out a little bit more.
Well, I think so how we started it was with just the standard, I don't know, 10 different shows with the local celebrity hosts. And then the next step we did was we started.
So it's kind of similar to like a radio network almost, but it's all on podcasts.
Exactly. Which can I plug something? We're launching Edge Podcast Radio come June 8th.
Wow, right, that's so fascinating. So it's going to be a radio station? It's
just a radio station. We're working with iHeart, but it's just Edge Podcast Radio, and it's just going to have podcasts stream all day long. So
that's such an
podcast might be a good one to put on there. But yeah, we're kind of doing it and building it like a radio station, that people can tune in every morning from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. and listen to Hayes and Jason, which is one of our shows. And, it's like a morning show. And then the next, and just kind of schedule it the same. We have program directors, a super talented guy, Andrew Hayes, that's doing it. And so we have that coming up too. But yeah, so that's kind of, we got our roots from all these radio people who were still either in radio. A lot of our hosts right now are former radio people, current radio people. Like the guy that I started with, Wes McCain, he's now on a morning show in Chicago, but he still does a lot with us, So we kind of structured it like that to be, more that way. And then what we started to do is we got some people that wanted to do podcasting, but wanted to be on our network. And that turned out to be a nightmare, a complete nightmare. And I think because we weren't really charging them that much, and I don't say it for money way, but I was losing money because I got so used to, let's say, a guy at our show, for example, his name is Mike Wickett. He was on morning show in Milwaukee, a sports show forever, then went to Kansas City, and now is in Iowa. I got spoiled because he does his show, he edits his show, he sends it to me, I put it up. We do marketing. Yeah. To have people come in that are spending their hard-earned money, and then they'd come in the next day and want all these other edits, or the next day and say, yeah, I don't like how my guest tone sounded. She sounded really crabby. Can you make her happy? It's not a cartoon. Like, I can't change someone's tone of their voice. Like, I can edit what they're saying. So it just became, all my employees would be like, oh my, like everyone would run, and then I'd be in the room with them. Like, I'd want to run. And it just didn't seem for us a good fit because it was taking so much time,
Yeah.
So I thought, that's not going to work. Like, how else can we make money? And then that's when it dawned on me, all of my hosts are bringing in guests, right? A lot of them are doctors. A lot of them, depending on the show, sport people, somebody who runs a granola company, to be honest, a personal chef. Like, we just had, for example, we had a personal chef on yesterday, and I called her up today and said, hey, we're doing this podcast-a-thon to raise food for families. What do you want to do? And now all of a sudden she's doing a show that's going to be cooking with Polly or whatever. And that we have, do videos of our cooking. So I think everyone wants an outlet, but they don't know it. And how great for us that people are coming in, business owners are coming in day after day after day, and don't realize that this is an outlet that they can do. So it kind of became a no-brainer for us to turn that into doing branded podcasting for companies. Am I making sense? I'm talking a hell of a lot.
No, you are making sense. I'm super fascinated about the creation of Edge Radio. It's interesting because you guys, you started kind of competing against radio, and now you're going back into that market just to compete a little bit more against them. It just reminds me of brick and mortar bookstores and how Amazon just completely destroyed people online because nobody had any online presence for bookstores. And a lot of the companies have adapted now. And I mean, there are still some competitors out there for Amazon, but it's fascinating because it might be an interesting move for Amazon to make, to start opening up bookstores of their own to compete on that front against these companies as
Right.
well.
Didn't they talk about doing that?
I'm not sure if they considered it, but it's just interesting that they started like completely polarized away from like what the status quo was, and similar to what you're doing, they're bringing it back.
Yeah, it's something I don't. Again, it's that I don't worry about this guy I'm doing it with is really worried about failing, and I'm like, we can't worry about that. We just have to do it. It might fail because why aren't many people doing it, right? So you have to wonder, like, there must be a reason why they're not. But I also am blessed because I have on my team one of the best program directors. She programmed #1 radio station for 20 years until she retired and decided she didn't want to do it anymore. I have all these people who have the inside scoop. If I were to do it by myself, could I pull it off? No. These guys are just, we're on these meetings and I don't even know what they're saying, but we have it running right now. It's just not launched. And it's cool because, we just put them all into rotation and they figured out a way that will do it, but then keep changing rotation every couple weeks until we fill it with more. Right now, all we have on there are Edge Podcast Network shows. But obviously we don't want to keep it that way. So, it'll be interesting how it goes, but I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to, we're going to advertise it a lot when we do this podcast-a-thon on June 6th and 7th, and then have it come out on the 8th. And it'll be interesting how to do it. We're going to get submission from other people and start adding it. But what's great is it's an extra revenue stream. Now we're selling like radio, we're selling commercial ads, we're selling, sponsors for each show. They get the podcast element, they get the live, from an app, the live streaming element.
That's fascinating.
And all that stuff. So that's, putting it all together, it seems like it just keeps making our product and our creation bigger and bigger and bigger, if we're hitting every single aspect of it. From branded podcasting to our own, to radio station, to doing events, and just kind of bringing it all. It just seems like, we're just forming this great bubble of it, to be able to tap into everything. So,
yeah. And before we wrap up here, one thing that I learned a few years ago about radio stations, unless it's a live show, a lot of the things that we hear on the radio are all just recorded segments.
Absolutely.
And there's not even anybody there. I went in there. So one of my former coaches, he was a radio host as well. And he took us, a couple of the players on our team, into one of the iHeartRadio stations, and there was nobody in there. And all these stations are running live, but it's just a bunch of computers, and they record sound bites, and that's all it is. Unless it's live, well, then of course people need to be there. But it's just kind of interesting that
I used to do weekends, and I'd go in on a Tuesday, and the only thing you'd have to do is, you don't talk about weather. You don't talk about, kind of anything like that, because you can be like, oh, it's sunny outside and it's rainy. But yeah, I'd record on a Tuesday and it would play at, I think, 8:00 until 11 or 12 every Sunday. And I didn't get paid a lot, but it was fun to do. But I would just go by myself in a booth. Yeah, I didn't know it's just voice tracking. So yeah, it's crazy, but that's, and that's kind of the thing. It's, kind of keeping up with everything. And, again, I don't know, but I'm excited because with podcasting, it just keeps getting better. More keeps happening. There's more you can do with it. People are embracing it more. So I don't know. It'll be exciting to see what happens. But I want you definitely on our truck and put your show on our radio station.
I'll drive the truck. How about that?
Absolutely, love it.
We can use my phone's hotspot. We will record live. We'll stream live to Edge Radio.
I love it.
And then we'll record it for future podcasts.
Yes.
Anyways, I know we're over time. I appreciate you coming on, Allison. And there's so much that I took out of this. I mean, be fearless, first of all. Be great to your people. And third of all, build a community. And you should be good to go for your market.
Well, thank you so much.
Other than that, thank you, Allison. Let's stay in touch, and I will talk to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Finding Your Niche. If you enjoyed it, give us a follow. And if you have any feedback, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or leave us a review.